Today's daily word, or should I say words, mercy versus sacrifice. Very important, mercy versus sacrifice. And why Jesus thinks mercy is better than sacrifice. And let me explain why. When you think about sacrifice, you sacrifice something where it's almost like you offer it or you surrender something. But when it's a merciful thing, it's compassion associated with you doing a particular thing. For example, Jesus sacrificed his precious blood for all of our sins and our ancestors' sins. He did that out of mercy. Even though we might view that as a sacrifice, which it is to some extent, but he did it mercifully, meaning he did it with compassion for us. Sacrifice is doing something, you're surrendering something or you're offering something. But you don't have to be passionate about it. When you do something mercifully, or when mercy is the lead thing that made you do whatever you decided to do, then it's a compassion component attached to it. Let me make this analogy with you. Say, for example, you go to the doctor. Say you smoke cigarettes. You're a heavy chain smoker. You smoke cigarettes, right? And all of a sudden the doctor tells you, hey, you got to give up smoking cigarettes, because if you don't give up smoking cigarettes, it's a chance that you're going to die. And all of a sudden the person might hear that and he might say, you know what? I got to give up smoking cigarettes, because if not, it's a chance that I'm going to die. So I'll do it I'll just sacrifice smoking the cigarettes. You see how that can be viewed? Let me use that same analogy. But watch how this analogy works. That same doctor goes and tells that same individual, hey, you got to quit smoking. You have to quit smoking because it's a possibility that you can die. And then it's a possibility that you can't be there for your children. The person who receives that information, he could have had in his mind, you know what? I'm still smoking. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die, and I'm either going to give that sacrifice, or I'm not going to give that sacrifice up, or I'm not going to give that offering up of smoking cigarettes. But when you add the mercy part to it, it's a compassion component. Your children, if you don't stop smoking, your children and your children won't have a father. You won't be able to raise your kids. Now it's a more compassionate kind of reason for giving up smoking. Yeah, you know what? I couldn't stand having my children here without them being in my life. And all I have to do is do this. I care about my kids enough that I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop smoking. You see the difference between the two? Sacrifice, I'm going to offer this, or I'm going to surrender this. It's almost like no emotional or compassionate attachment to it. Mercy, I'm going to have mercy on something, or I'm going to do this because of mercy, because of the compassion that I might have towards others. Then that carries a lot more weight because it's feeling attached to it. So when Jesus sacrificed his precious blood for all of our sins, he did it because of the mercy. He did it through mercy. And through mercy for us, through love for us, he did that. Not just I'm sacrificing myself for all my brothers and sisters and that's it. Nah, I love my brothers and sisters so much, I'm willing to give myself up in order for you to live. That's what makes what Jesus did so remarkable. Now, I say that to say this. when you're dealing with your brothers and sisters. Deal with your brothers and sisters from a merciful perspective, from a compassionate perspective. And if you do those things, you will always, always treat them well. You will always do it in a way that is pleasing to God. You will always do it in a way that is unselfish, and that you're doing this for the betterment of someone else. Just think about that. Very important. Mercy versus sacrifice. But here's another thing though. I'm not sitting up here saying when one makes a sacrifice, that's still not good. I'm not sitting up here saying that's not a good deal to make a sacrifice to do something. So you can make a sacrifice and it still can be a positive that come out of that. But this message is, if you compare the two, the one that's done as mercy, as with mercy as the backdrop, with mercy as the main driver, then there's an emotional attachment, there's a righteous attachment, there's a sacrificial attachment still, but there's a love element and a caring for your brothers and sisters that's very important. And that's the way to look at that. So think and walk in the way of a merciful person, and that will allow, or that will be an example of showing your brothers and sisters how much you love them, or your children, or your grandparents or relatives. That mercy element is very important and it's appreciated. Talk to you soon. God bless.
You're not a little soldier, so show me. Tell us. God bless you. That God has his hand on your life.